All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video in advance of the upcoming NFL draft. And of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Check them out, 2 locations. They're in Emeryville, open Wednesday through Sunday. They're open 7 days a week in Marin County, right there in Corte Madera from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. All right, let's ask the question here. Are the 49ers getting ready to trade Brandon Aiyuk? It just makes you wonder when you look at what they've done at wide receiver this offseason and what they continue to do as far as leading into the draft. First of all, Brandon Aiyuk is a terrific player. I mean, he's under contract with the 49ers. He's under team control through 2024. Um, John Lynch has already said the 49ers are going to pick up Ayuk's fifth-year option, but that's going to be a very expensive option. We're talking over $14 million a year for that option. And, you got Debo on the other side who's going to cost you even more than that. So, Debo, McCaffrey, Kittle, I mean, you've got a lot of different weapons that you got to pay. And Ayuk, you kind of wonder, are the 49ers, looking to move him? And why do you say that? Well, they went out and signed Chris Conley. They worked out Laquan Treadwell and Chris Conley, and they signed Conley. Conley's a 30-year-old receiver. He's 6'3", about 215 pounds. But he is a proven NFL veteran. And he's got some great measurables. I mean, if you look at, not only is he 6'3", 215, he's got long arms, huge hands. He ran 4.35 in the combine coming out. He had a 45-inch vertical, 18 reps on the bench. So we're talking about a physical freak in a lot of ways. And he's bounced around. It's not like Conley's been a monster anywhere else, but still, that's a pretty good receiver to add to the mix when you already have Debo, you already have Juwan Jennings, Brandon Aiyuk as your starters. You have Danny Gray, who I could see his role becoming larger in year 2. Gray showed snippets in his rookie year of huge talent. He was a third-round pick last year. You got Ray McLeod, who's coming off of a very good year as a really jack of all trades. They use him as a running back. They use him as a receiver. He's a return guy. I love Tay Martin, who really didn't bust out this year, but played on the practice squad. And I got to believe that the Niners see the exact same things I see. They're the ones who signed him. I mean, this Tay Martin was terrific as a possession receiver with a huge catch radius at Oklahoma State. And I really believe he's going to show up in camp this summer and be a contender for, definitely for the roster. And he's going to fight for that role, for a spot on that roster. So Tay Martin, Chris Conley, Danny Gray, Ray McLeod, that's 4 right there. Juwan Jennings is 5. Debo would be 6. Aiyuk would be 7 right now. Right now, they're 7 deep at wide receiver. And if you believe the reports that are out, there's multiple reports out that they've, had a number of wide receiver pre-draft visits. In fact, I just read today, Mike Garafolo for the NFL Network reported the Niners are meeting with the Michigan State wide receiver Jayden Reed. And a lot of people have Reed going, maybe 3rd round, right around, anywhere between 65 and 100, somewhere in that mix he's going to go. Some people think he may slide into the 4th round, but there's a very good chance that, that Reed, who's a really good wide receiver. I mean, if you watch Michigan State, this guy plays flanker, he plays X, he plays in the slot, he's a return man, very productive junior year, averaged over 17 yards per reception, had 14 touchdowns, and went over 1,000 yards. Then at Indy, he ran 4.45. At the Senior Bowl, he was voted as the top practice player among all of the national team's wide receivers. And he's got great hands, great ball skills. Not the biggest receiver, 5'11", but Jayden Reed is nice. So, I mean, if you're working out Jayden Reed, they also worked out Jonathan Mingo. They're looking at a number of different receivers that they've already taken a look at. Mingo's a big-time player out of Ole Miss. Demario Douglas from Liberty, I think, is a real nice player. I think they've taken a look at him. So that they're looking at receivers in the draft. They just picked up Conley. They go 7 deep. They're probably going to be hugged up against the cap. They're not going to be able to extend everybody. And there's Brandon Aiyuk. And this is going to be a really, really tough call for the 49ers because Brandon Aiyuk is really just coming into his own as a player. I mean, there's no question in my mind he's an ascending football player whose best football is going to be played right now. So that would be a tough decision to move him. But then you look at this receiver class at the top, and Quentin Johnston from TCU is considered one of the top guys. Zay Flowers from Boston College, who's a 5'9" receiver. He's considered one of the top wide receivers. It's going to go in the first round. I think Ayuk's better than those guys. I mean, I don't, Jordan Addison I really like from USC. But, I mean, I think Aiyuk doesn't take a backseat to any of those receivers. So, if you're one of those teams like the New York Giants sitting there at 25 at the end of round 1, and you're trying to get Danny Dimes more weapons, and you're looking to get it turned around not long term, and the failure rate on rookie receivers, not just the failure rate, how long it usually takes. There's very, very few rookie wide receivers that step in and produce. I mean, Randy Moss did, but very few do. Most rookie receivers don't play well. Or if they do, they're way better in year 2. So, if you're the New York Giants and you're trying to turn things around, you might move the 25th pick for Brandon Aiyuk. Now, that's about where he went in the draft. The Niners might have to sweeten it a little bit. They might have to offer a future pick or something in addition to Aiyuk if you're going to get the 25th pick. But not necessarily. I mean, not necessarily. The Giants don't pick again until 57. Is a lot. What kind of receiver is going to be there? So if you want a big-time wide receiver like Brandon Aiyuk and you're the New York Giants, and I circle on them because I think they're a team that's definitely in the market for a wide receiver. And they're also have high expectations. They were in the playoffs this year. They want to make a step forward. I mean, they don't really have a good group of wide receivers. Aiyuk would be their number 1 receiver. So that's something to keep your eye on draft day. Would the 49ers trade Aiyuk and maybe some kind of conditional future pick or some later round pick and get up to 25? And then if they did get to 25, what are they looking at? My guess is they're probably looking at Notre Dame tight end Michael Mayer. That would be one option. Mississippi State shutdown corner Emmanuel Forbes. You don't get a shutdown corner very much. Forbes is definitely that. And then there's a couple of edge rusher guys. Adetomiwa Adebawore from Northwestern. And Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame. And Foskey was in at their local pro day meeting with them. Now, the mock draft I'm looking at has Foskey going 65. So they have him going at high in round 3. But he's 6'5". He's 265 pounds. He was Notre Dame's team captain. He had 10.5 sacks. He had a forced fumble. I mean, he's a blue chip guy. High second or late first might be a little high for Isaiah Foskey, but who knows? I mean, I'll say he'd be on the short list. I really think the short list would include Michael Mayer, Emmanuel Forbes, Adebawore, Foskey, and maybe a tackle. Maybe you could see, the other guy that, in the mock that I'm looking at, he's not available, but in some he is, and that's Kalijah Cansey from Pittsburgh, who's just a special defensive lineman. And then there's Darnell Wright from Tennessee, who a lot of people thought a month ago they had projected in the middle of the second round. Now Darnell Wright, the mock I'm looking at, he's going 17 to the Steelers, so he wouldn't be on the board. But I think he's the best right tackle prospect, and if you really wanted a monster right tackle and you were going to trade Ayuk and try to get into the first round to get one, I think the guy that you would be looking to fall, hoping would fall, would be Darnell Wright from Tennessee. So that's intriguing. I mean, if you don't feel like you can give Ayuk the targets that you need, you add Chris Conley, you add a receiver like Jaden Reed in the draft, and you turn that pick into your future right tackle in Darnell Wright, or your future number one corner in Deontay Banks or Emmanuel Forbes, or your future defensive line monster up front, because the Niners like to have a dominant front four. Maybe they see a front line of Hargrave and Armstead and Bosa and Cansey. Cansey's a dominating player. He really is. ACC Defensive Player of the Year this year. Really overpowering player. Or maybe they're dreaming the Michael Mayer dream. Michael Mayer, they call Baby Gronk. And they've been looking at a bunch of tight ends. It's a premier tight end draft. Mayer is the safest pick in the draft. He's going to be really, really good. Really good. No question. Very safe player. Maybe they're going in that direction. But the Aiyuk, the Conley signing wasn't just nothing. And now they're kicking tires on Jaden Reed. That's not nothing. It makes you think that Brandon Aiyuk could get moved on draft day. Not saying it's going to happen, but I'm telling you, don't follow the draft this next, when it comes up on the 27th. Don't follow it like, hey, the Niners don't have a pick till 99. I'll tune in at 95 and I'll watch them pick. There's a chance at the end of the first round that Brandon Aiyuk could be on the move. And if you told me that the New York Giants were going to acquire Aiyuk and somehow that 25th pick in the first round was going to be the 49ers making that selection, that would not surprise me in the least. So just something to watch for as the draft approaches. It would be disappointing if Aiyuk left, but if you really look at it from a practical standpoint, when you look at the ball distribution and then the ability to potentially replace Aiyuk with Conley, with Danny Gray, with Jaden Reed, Jonathan Mingo, somebody like that later in the draft, and then the kind of player you might be able to get, whether it be a Michael Mayer, a Foskey, a Kalijah Cansey, Emmanuel Forbes, Adi Tamiwa Adibare, you get one of those real difference makers at defensive end, offensive tackle, corner, and tight end. I mean, that could change the dynamic of your football team. And I think that's something that makes you think, with the addition of Conley and the fact they're looking at wide receivers and they already have an exceptionally deep wide receiver room, that maybe Debo or Aiyuk is not a long time guy. And my guess is it would be Aiyuk that would be moving on. Something to watch for sure. All right, hope you enjoyed the 49er video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krueger Show. And keep it locked on the Krueger Show throughout the draft, leading into training camp for all your top-tier Niner coverage. And thanks for supporting the Krueger Show on YouTube.